Let's talk about Makhachev versus Green. Holy crap, man. What is Makhachev's ceiling? What does he do next from here? Where does he go, you know? I think the right answer is the title shot. I mean, he got the finish here at what? Was it 3 minutes and 23 seconds? Yep. Yeah, so at the 3:30 mark, he got into he worked his way in, got into a clinch, and got the takedown at 3:10. There was not a ton of damage that he unleashed here. I mean, let's pull it up, but he wasn't really unloading a lot of damage or anything. You know, he only landed 14 significant strikes, total strikes 30, but it doesn't matter. You know, he had his back. Green wasn't defending. It doesn't matter if the shots are fight-ending shots or not. That's how that works. You're not intelligently defending yourself, the fight gets called. So he gets a TKO victory here, which puts him on a four-fight win streak as well as finishing. No, he's on more than a four-fight win streak, but four-fight finish streak. And, you know, he was supposed to be fighting Beneil Dariush, who is much higher ranked. Actually, is ranked, period. Dariush is number 3. Yeah, so he was supposed to fight number 3. It's not his fault that Beneil Dariush fell out, and he had to fight an unranked opponent. So, therefore, I think he should go in. And if you look at his record here, you know, Bobby Green, very good. Also, in this fight, Bobby Green just was not throwing out as much offense as he usually does. His output was way lower. You can see he only threw 9 significant strikes, or only landed 9 significant strikes, and he didn't throw very much at all anyway. It was just he stepped up on short notice, and I think he should be commended for that. You know, this loss isn't going to count against him very much. I think he just hops right back on the horse, maybe even gets ranked. No. Well, it shouldn't get ranked. What I mean is maybe fights a ranked opponent, and another ranked opponent, you know, he basically threw the UFC a bone here, so now they throw one back. You know, he saved the card for him, or saved the main event, and got Islam a fight, and now he, you know, in return should be rewarded with another ranked opponent, so he can jump back in the rankings. So, you know, and before this, it was Dan Hooker, I think also on relatively short notice. That was a short notice fight for Dan Hooker. He stepped up. Thiago Moises, that was a good fight, good win for him. Obviously more competitive, went on longer, went to the 4th round. And Drew Dober was a good win for him as well, and that was a real fight. So those are all from 2021. He's, you know, a 3-fight finish streak coming into this fight, getting the TKO finish in the first round pretty impressively. I don't see why you wouldn't give him a title shot against the winner of Oliveira versus Gaethje. So, you know, what is his ceiling out there? Do you guys think do you think he's better than Khabib? Because I see things in his game that are much better than Khabib's. His striking is much more polished. You know, he's more aware on the feet than Khabib ever was. Khabib's striking was never good. I don't want to hear about the one time he knocked Conor down. Yeah, okay. I mean, he can land a punch, and I'm sure in practice he has fine fundamentals. But when you watch him fight, it's clunky, it's awkward, but it didn't have to be good because his pressure was so dominating. He had a good chin, so he could take a couple shots on the way in. And once he got a hold of you, you weren't going anywhere, and he was going to finish you. Much of the time that's what happened. Or he's just going to ground and pound you and make it a really boring fight and make you want to quit. So this is a little bit different. Islam is much more refined, much more polished. I don't know if he's necessarily stronger or faster. If you look at the grappling situations, it's hard to tell if he's better than Khabib at grappling. It doesn't, just from the onset of how he's dealt with opponents in the past and the caliber of opponents he's been fighting and what he's been able to do to them / not been able to do to them, as opposed to what Khabib was kind of able to do to those people. I think it's pretty close. You know, Khabib didn't always just impress his will on other people. And yes, he never had a recorded loss in the UFC, even though he should have lost, not the Gleison Tebow fight, but the Gleison Tebow fight. Go back and watch it. I've mentioned it a couple of times. It was not a good fight. Gleison Tebow should have got that win. It's just, And Islam does have a loss in the UFC via TKO. So, shit happens. People lose. It's not the end of the world. Islam looks freaking amazing. He really does. He's got a dominant, crushing top game, just like Khabib did, and everybody wants to talk about how, oh, look how he finishes submissions. Yeah, he's very good. Okay. I don't know how that fight would go. Here's the other thing. Because if Gaethje beats Oliveira, which I know some people think is ridiculous, but it's Justin Gaethje, guys. And Oliveira is Oliveira. Oliveira's probably going to get cracked. And Gaethje can get the finish. Like, for those of you out there who think that can't happen, you're living in, like, La La Land. Now, you may have an argument as to why that is less likely to happen, or why certain events might transpire based off of their last couple of fights and how their fights have differentiated going forward, what they've learned from each fight, and how they've advanced in the past few wins that they've had. That's fine. We can have a discussion. You can have a discussion. You can have a nuanced opinion. But to outright say Gaethje has no chance, I mean, he had a chance against Khabib. Okay? He did. And there were people out there saying he has no chance. I mean, he did. And he has a chance against Oliveira. Absolutely he does. Styles make fights, because could Oliveira beat Islam, or have a greater chance of beating Islam than, I keep saying Islam, Makhachev. I mean, Islam is his first name, but I don't know. I feel like this video's going to get flagged for me saying the name of a religion constantly over and over. So anyway, Makhachev versus Oliveira, right? Styles make fights. We've heard that discussion before. We've heard, that motto, that MMA truism, right? It just always is. Styles make fights. So, on any given night, based off of their styles, they have advantages over their opponent and disadvantages. Does Oliveira's advantages outweigh Gaethje's advantages against Islam? I would argue that they do, because he's more adept at ground fighting and he's less reliant on keeping it standing. And he's also a good striker. Oliveira is a very good fighter. In the past, I have not downplayed his victories necessarily, but I have been critical of the admiration for the win streak over less than stellar opponents. Okay, not that a win streak is anything to dismiss in general. Obviously, any win streak in the UFC is usually impressive. Okay, but judging by the strength of schedule compared to his contemporaries, to his peers, I didn't feel like his title shot was warranted or whatever, right? But they're at least being somewhat consistent, because Beneil Dariush is on the same trajectory as Charles Oliveira was. He's on the exact same trajectory, and he's going to be, this was supposed to be a title eliminator. If Beneil Dariush won this fight, he's going to fight a title. So that's the other thing. Does Dariush have a better chance of beating Islam than Gaethje does? I would argue that he does. That's the thing, is these styles, with Dariush being an adept grappler, but also like a very, very good grappler, but a crazy striker who's willing to stay in the pocket. Okay, he does, kind of see red, I guess you could say it, but sometimes if he gets cracked, he goes into brawl mode, and that's bit him in the ass before. He's lost by knockout a few times. I mean, freaking Edson Barbosa sent him to hell with a freaking with the flying knee. But Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje are have similar base styles, so wrestle boxers, right? Obviously, they have much different stats as far as power, aggression, fight style, those kinds of things, but their base is very similar. And I would argue that Islam has the same advantages over Michael Chandler as he does with Justin Gaethje, although I think Chandler is more explosive early on, so he has the what is that? I wouldn't call it the shock factor, but more like the randomness factor, right? Like anything can happen in a fight, and the more variables you throw in there, the more outcomes that can happen. So I think he has a good chance. I think Rafael dos Anjos probably gets smoked. He's shown in the past to be very weak to strong offensive grapplers. It's been his downfall many times, and he also got ragdolled by Khabib when they fought in the past. So if Khabib did it, I would argue that Islam's probably going to be able to do it, especially because this Rafael dos Anjos isn't as, I don't know if, well, that's the thing, is he wasn't as good then as when he was in his prime. So I would still say Islam has a huge advantage. Now, Tony Ferguson, that's an interesting matchup. Gregor Gillespie's been calling for that fight. I think his wrestling is a different type of wrestling than, Michael Chandler's base. Because Gillespie's, one of those Colby Covington, early Kamaru Usman type fighters where he's just pressure. And that's pretty much what Islam does. So, seeing them against each other, that would be really fun. Arman Saryukian has fought him already. Fiziev would be freaking amazing. I think that fight would be fun. I don't know how Fiziev would do, but as I'm saying, there's a lot of good matchups. But he passed all of them up. He got to jump the line, so we didn't get to see any of those on the way up. Similar to what we saw with Khabib, he got to kind of jump the line, and avoid a lot of those different stylistic challenges on the way up. Not saying that he wouldn't have beaten those people, but it would have been a lot more interesting. That's why all those questions, we had all those questions when he was champion. Same with Conor McGregor, right? Conor McGregor did the exact same thing. He does not get a pass in this conversation. Conor McGregor got to jump the line. He was exciting. He called his matchups or he called his outcomes, the Mystic Mac era. Impressive wins by all measures, but he was only fighting people that were stylistically advantageous for himself. So by doing that, he effectively gets to jump the line and not have to take on any of these other fighters like Tony Ferguson. Who else was in there? Oh, in lightweight, it was everybody. But in featherweight, he got to jump the line and go take on Aldo. Gets the win. Like, do you think he would beat Aldo now? That's a good question. I mean, they're separated by 3 weight classes now. So there's just something that happens when a fighter gets to jump the line. So here's the difference. Like, we look at Kamaru Usman. Look at the respect he gets for being the champion in his division. And why is that? I would say a large part of that is the fact that he had to go up the hard way, right? He was taking on mainstays like Damian Maia, right? Taking on mainstays like Damian Maia. And yeah, he beat some people who aren't in the UFC anymore. But in the process, he also beat up people like, why am I drawing blanks on his past opponents? Because none of them are ranked anymore. I mean, he beat Leon Edwards. He already fought him. He has not fought him. He fought Jorge Masvidal as champion, so that doesn't count. Yeah, there's lots of new challenges there for him now that I think about it. Holy moly. Anyway, so when he was coming up, he had to fight a lot of different styles. Okay, he was fighting he fought some other wrestlers, and then by the time he got to the championship, when he was fighting Tyron Woodley, who is, known for his wrestling and strength or whatever, and he just dominated him. And then he's taken on wrestlers since then, and we have a really good picture of who Kamaru Usman is as a fighter and how he's improved each fight and, all those things. Same with, our current champions, like Glover Teixeira, Francis Ngannou. Like, we know what they're about. We know what they're doing. We know how they stand up to different styles, so we can make accurate, so we can know that, Kamaru Usman is the best welterweight in the world, and the only person close to him is Colby Covington, matchup-wise. Like, we can have a good guess. Like, he's probably he already beat Gilbert Burns once, but, Gilbert Burns does have a chance to win there, but he beats most of these people, and we just know that based off of his track record and his history. And we don't have to wait 8 months for him to set up another title shot and do all these things, and we don't have to wait until these guys fight and get their title eliminator and get to that championship challenger status. We don't have to wait for all those things because we already saw it on the way up. And that's what we didn't get to see with Khabib as much as we could have, right? Because he, like I said, jumped the line. Charles Oliveira did not jump any lines. I mean, like I said, I don't like how, maybe I have said he jumped the line, but it's a different type because he's been in for so long and we've seen him fight everybody. So he has a long track record. So if you want to give him the veteran benefit, I'm okay with that. As to why that he jumped the queue. So with Islam here, really, like, let's say he does get the title, he gets the title shot, obviously, from this fight. Let's say he wins the title. Are we in another Khabib situation? Or, I mean, hopefully better because maybe he defends the title more than 5 times or more than 4 times and he actually fights more often, which would be great. Or are we in a similar situation where, we're going to have a bunch of people killing themselves off in this division who would be a great title, great matchup for Islam, but we never got to see it, and we might never get to see it while Islam's champion. And that's what sucks. But I mean, that's what I want to see. I want to see him challenged. Like that's what makes. I mean, granted, if you're a title holder long enough, we get to see that. Like, if Khabib were champion for 8 title defenses, chances are we would have seen enough different styles and enough different people come up there to kind of quell all of the questions and all the arguments against his greatest status. Okay. But we didn't get that. He only fought, I don't want to keep saying that, but I'm pretty sure he didn't have very many title defenses. And it's just, there's something different about the way, someone like Kamaru Usman did it. Even Israel Adesanya, who had like a meteoric rise up to the top and got the belt, we saw him take on multiple wrestlers on the way up there. Multiple. And he still did it. And he became champion. And now he's fighting everybody. He even went up a weight class. And that's what I'm hoping. Maybe that's what the biggest takeaway for me is on this. Like, I mean, let me know in the comments down below. Like, how do you feel about Islam being the possible champion? Are you excited for it? Are you kind of dismayed by it because it's Khabib 2.0 and you're just like, Khabib's reign was kind of boring because we didn't get to see him fight a lot of different people and he just quit. But for me, what I really want is someone who's like Charles Oliveira, who's willing to take on all challengers. Okay, someone like him who steps up and just takes on everybody. Okay, maybe he would be entertained. He would entertain going up a weight class. Not this whole inner weight class thing. I can take it or leave it. I'm not necessarily against it. I think it doesn't hold as much water as dominating your division does. So being a multiple division belt holder can add to your legacy, but I don't think it adds to your legacy more than defending your title for multiple years, because that takes one, a lot of effort, but 2, a lot of focus and dedication to stay ahead of everybody who knows your game and knows what you're trying to do for years on end. Because once you're the champion, anybody who has championship aspirations, that's what they're looking to take down, that style. They know that eventually they're going to have to compete against that style. Whereas coming up, let's say you're in the rankings somewhere. Okay, let's say you're in the top 15 somewhere. Right? If I'm a up-and-coming challenger, I might not necessarily be training for your stylistic matchup because I might not have to fight you. Now, that being said, we might end up getting matched up, and then I will most likely train for your style and, go through the normal training procedures and the training camp and all that stuff. But knowing that you're the champion years ahead of time, I for sure know that I'm going to have to at least take on that style at some point, at one time. So I'm going to throw that stuff in to my training all the time, regardless of who I'm trying to fight. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, what GSP did, what Anderson Silva did, hell, what John Jones did for the longest time. His difficulties outside the cage notwithstanding. These dominant champions who just stay on top for years, it's very difficult to do that against people always who know that you're coming, who know that you're there, who know that that's the challenge at the end of the tunnel, right? I know what the challenge is at the end of the tunnel. So all the other stuff along the way, I'm going to have to train for as I would. But I know at the end, I'm going to have to beat Islam, or I'm going to have to beat Khabib. Right now, I'm going to have to beat Charles Oliveira. So that's why I want, if Islam does become champion, I hope he's an active one. I hope we get some interesting matchups. I hope, a lot of these fighters are given title shots without, cannibalizing the division, because lightweight is one of the deepest and most skilled divisions in the UFC. At one point, I would argue that it was the most difficult and skilled division, but I think the lower weight classes have stepped up now. I think something like bantamweight or featherweight, it's just killers from top to bottom in the top 15. I'm not saying it's not in lightweight. It is as well, right? I think lightweight is at a historically deep point. It has been for years. I think featherweight and bantamweight are probably the two best divisions in the UFC. Men's, bantamweight, and featherweight. So, what do you guys want for Islam? Where do you think he goes? Like, what do you think his ceiling is? Do you think he's has greatest of all time potential? Like Khabib did have that potential, just never capitalized on it, never went through with it because he left too early. So what do you think? And let's draw it back to this fight, because I have pontificated much about generalities and things in the UFC. But let's bring it back to this fight, and let's talk about Green. What do you guys want to see for Green next? Because I have a feeling that Green's going to get somebody in the top 15 again, and I'm really hoping he does. But I'm hoping they don't give him a wrestler. It's just, guys, and that's the other thing. I don't take anything away from Green on this one. I think he's been excellent the past couple of years. I think he's really put things together. I don't know, without the strong wrestling base and without the ability to deal with the wrestling, you're at a huge disadvantage in every division. Okay, minus heavyweight. But if you're not able to deal with that stuff, dude, it's going to be a rough road. So it would take a lot, I think, for him to become champion or even get to the title picture. I think a lot of things would have to fall into place for him. So as far as I'm concerned, I think Islam has one of the best. I think wrestling, freestyle folk, Sambo, which is, Greco-Roman. I think a lot of these grappling heavy, stand-up grappling heavy martial arts are probably the best base. That there have been some breakdowns in the past, and people have put up statistics, but they're kind of screwed up. Like, they put down GSP as a wrestler, which technically I guess you could say that, but his base was karate. When they put champions by base. So, and also, like, it's just, if you just put champion number by base, that's kind of a misleading statistic, because Anderson Silva was champion for like 5 years or 6 years, so that eliminates the possibility of different no ticks on that scale. So it should be title defenses by base, like by reported base. I wouldn't mind. I'm going to write that down. I might do that one. That sounds fun. Anyway, I think this fight was what we all expected. If any of you guys expected Bobby Green to go in there and knock him out, you're crazy. I mean, we could all want it, right? We can all want it. We could all be rooting for Green. I'm not saying I wasn't. Obviously, I was. Because he stepped up on short notice and he's just, he's going in there with nothing to lose. It's just fun to root for the guy. And because it's against such insurmountable odds, and we all knew this was going to happen. Like, in your mind, if you didn't have this going, I would say 95-5, right? 90-10 is gracious. But I had this way in favor of Islam, and I think it was easy money. It's just, there's one of those things where everybody knew what was going to happen. It happened, and then we're all done with it. So, like, it's less, I think it's less cool. It's less impressive because we expected it. Not that what he did wasn't physically impressive or, what he is as a fighter isn't impressive. It's that we all knew it was going to happen. So, like, it met our expectations instead of exceeded it. Let's put it that way. Anyway, what do you guys think happens next for Islam? I think it's title shot. I think, he probably gets the title. And then, I'm hoping he defends it for years. So let me know what you guys think.